Hello, everyone. Hi. My name is Henry, and I'm a software engineer at 0x. And today I'm going to be talking about open sourcing a library that we have published at 0x. It's called 0x-Parser. We're going to talk about, at a high level, what this library is, and then why it's useful. And then we're going to talk about some of the best practices of open source. And in particular, I'm going to focus on automating releases. Now, automating releases is very important because as your team grows, everyone has to learn about a manual process, and it's not very scalable. It's quite brittle. At the end, we're going to go through a little demo as well. So before that, I'm going to talk about what 0x is. So we're a DEX aggregator API. So we provide infrastructure for swaps. In the middle here, we have our flagship product, matcha.xyz. And around it, we have a couple of wallets. Now, if you've used any of these wallets before and used their swapping feature, you've probably used 0x API. So we have Phantom, got MetaMask, and Coinbase Wallet. Now, when a user makes a swap on any one of these apps, the result is typically a transaction hash, and it looks something like this. Oh, wait, that's the next slide. They're going to make a request to 0x API. So in here, we have the URL. This is an indication that the user wants to swap 100 USDC for WETH. And so the request goes out to 0x API. And what you get back is a data structure that you can submit directly on chain. So that's why we have a send transaction function call here. And the quote we get back from 0x API has two fields. It has a to field, which points to the 0x smart contracts that will execute the swap. And then the data field, that's the call data that encodes the details of the swap, including the route and the amounts and the slippage. Here's the transaction hash. When a user makes a swap, the application will get a transaction hash. And typically, these apps will have a link linking out to a block explorer like Etherscan. URL might look like etherscan.com/tx/this long string. But most apps want to show users some details before they go to a block explorer. So on Matcha, it looks something like this. And on Coinbase Wallet, Phantom, and these other apps that use 0x API, you want to do something very similar. You want to show an amount and the tokens that were swapped. And that's where 0x-Parser comes into play. It's very simple. The library exports a single function called parse swap. And it only takes in two arguments. It takes in the public client and then the transaction hash. The public client is a connection to the Ethereum network. It's typically powered by an RPC provider like Alchemy or QuickNode. The second thing we're going to pass it is that long string we saw earlier, the transaction hash. And with those two things, a direct connection to Ethereum and the transaction hash, we could fetch data. So we have two blobs of data here. We got the transaction and the transaction receipt. Now we take that data and we pass it into some other parsing functions. And we're not going to dig too deep into the code here. The code's like about 500 lines of code. You can check that out on GitHub. And I'll have the link to the GitHub at the end. But essentially, these functions will return human-readable data that we can show to our users. So we get a result. And the result looks something like this. This is an object with two properties, token in, token out. Very straightforward. Now, it's important to parse these transactions after the swap has occurred, because due to market conditions and slippage, the final amount can be different than the quoted amount. So in this case, the user could have gotten a little bit less WETH. For example, 0.024 instead of 0.025, depending on market conditions, or maybe they set a high slippage tolerance. So that is the library that we're going to publish, or that has been published. And then we're going to talk about some of the best practices of automating the release process. And it all starts with semantic versioning. If you're developers here, you might have heard of this before. You might know what this is. On my left-hand side, there's the versions for 0x-Parser, and on the right, we have a sample of a semantic version. For example, we have 1.2.4. Now, each one of these numbers represent a type of release you want to do. So for example, if we have a bug fix, and we want to release that, we're going to increment the patch number. If we have a non-breaking feature, we're going to want to increment the minor version number. And finally, if we have a breaking change, and that means the consumers of our app will have to do something in order for them to upgrade, we're going to bump this major version number up. So this is the foundation to automating our releases. We're going to combine this with something called conventional commits. Now, conventional commits is not a package or anything like that. It's not an NPM library. It is simply a way to write your commit messages. Now, you're going to write it as normal, but you're going to prefix your commit messages with what we call a standard heading. These standard headings are adopted by many open source projects and has been popularized by Google's AngularJS. Here I have a set of commits, and each one of these commits have a green underline, and that underlines the conventional commit standard heading. So if you have a bug fix, you're going to prefix it with a fix standard heading. And then going down, we have feat, and then feat is short for feature. And then we have feat exclamation point. That's the exclamation point indicates a breaking change. So we're going to tie each one of these conventional commits to a semantic version number. So a fix correlates to the patch number. Feat correlates to the minor number. And then anytime we see an exclamation point, that's a breaking change, that correlates to the major number. And so with these foundations in place, we can write scripts to automate our release process, to deploy to run our CI, but also to deploy to NPM or any registry. But we don't have to write those scripts. There are packages out there to do that for us. Two of them are change sets and release please. I'm going to talk about release please. That's what we use in our repo. And essentially what this is a set of GitHub actions that will automate your release process. And once you get that set up, it all starts with a normal PR. This is like any PR you would normally do. Again, the only difference here is we have a standard heading here. It is fix : so this is a bug fix. Now, once we merge that PR, release please is going to automate the curation of what we call a release PR. So this will happen automatically. A GitHub action will open a PR, and this is going to be the preview of your release. So we're going to check the version number. Here it's 2.7.1. So we bumped up the patch. We bumped up the patch because we fixed the bug. So it used to be 2.7.0. Now it's 2.7.1. We also have the PR description that acts as a preview to our changelog. Release please also helps us create changelogs automatically based off of our commits. So once you merge that, it automatically kicks off the process. So the GitHub actions run. We run our CI, we run our builds, we run our tests, and we deploy our artifacts. So here we have the tests running. And in our package, we also deploy test artifacts to CodeCov. Now here's the preview of the changelog. On the right-hand side, all of that is automated. The only thing that was added was these images. I added those manually, but everything else was automated, the tags and the changelog. And that's it. It's released. You can now check it out on NPM and GitHub. So now I have some time for a demo. I'm going to do a live demo real quick. And what we're going to do is we're going to publish a new feature live. So hopefully this works. Oh. OK. All right. So here we have a regular PR. Again, we have our commit message with the standard heading, feat, indicating that this is a non-breaking feature. And let's take a look at the diff real quick. It's very simple. All we're going to do is when a transaction reverts, we're already returning null, but we're just going to log a warning for our consumers. And that's it. So I'm going to merge this PR. Cool. And that's going to kick off release please. If we go to our GitHub Actions, we should see something happening. So this might take a minute. And this is release please running all of its checks in preparation for that release PR. Okay, so it looks like this step has been completed. Let me go back. Now if we go to our pull requests, we'll see a new PR that was just created just now. And this is what we saw earlier in the slides as the release PR. Again, this is a preview to our release. So now we're bumping the version up to 2.1.0. And this is a preview of our changelog here. So now that let's merge this PR. All right. And this kicks off the automated release. So now if we go back to our GitHub Actions, it's running the build again. It's checking out the repo, running the CI, and building the artifacts. I'm just going to give it maybe 10, 15 seconds. And there was the publish step. Let me scroll up a little bit. So run npm public. Sorry, npm publish access public. And we got those green check marks. And that's it. We've automated our release, and we've cut a new release 2.10. So if I go back to the repository, let's check out our changelog and our tags. We can go down here to releases. We'll see that we published 2.10 a minute ago, and we have our artifacts here. And this is our changelog. Now let's go back and check npm. So I'm just going to go back to the top level of the repo and navigate to the npm website. Okay, I'm just going to click into versions. Actually, right here it says last published a minute ago. We'll go into versions. There we go, 2.10. And that's it. We published a new feature live on stage. And that's it. I hope you learned a little bit about the best practices of automating open sourcing a library. And if you're working on a Web3 package, you should definitely use a tool like Release Please. I'm Henry. You can follow me on Warpcast or X. And at 0x, we build DEX aggregation infrastructure. If you're interested in building with us, come chat with me. Thank you.